Hey, welcome to Taylor's Trick-Taking Table. I'm Taylor, and I just want to say thank you so much for watching. We recently hit a milestone of 555 subscribers, which kind of blows me away. If you've been watching for some amount of time, you might know that 5 is my favorite number. I try to highlight it in a bunch of these deck makeups as I do. And the last time we hit a 5-5 milestone, I did a top 5 trump mechanisms in trick-taking. So as you can see below, unless you're someone who doesn't read the titles to videos that you watch, we're doing a top 5 bidding mechanisms in trick-taking video. So I try to get a comprehensive list. I might have missed some stuff, so let me know in the comments if I've missed that. Also, to celebrate this crazy 555 milestone, I'll be releasing a channel trailer, which will be fun, a new banner, which features Claude, that's his name, and also a Secret September video that's a little cringy, but it's a great game. So I wanted to highlight that. So without further ado, let's get into number 5. Number 5 is going to be a little bit weird to describe. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's where you can only bid a certain thing, and once you bid that thing, the other players can't bid it, or in the future you can't rebid it yourself. This is seen a lot in solo trick-taking, especially the ones we've covered, like Gongor Whist. But I've called it like slot bidding, but the premise kind of is where, like in Caddy, if you bid on a certain area, the other players can't bid on it. So I don't know what to call it. I've called it like slot bidding or only one bidding. But the premise is you can only bid that once, or only one player at the table can bid that certain thing. It's really interesting because there's a lot more blocking. I know bidding is still interactive because you're trying to make sure someone doesn't hit their bid or go over it, you know? But it's interesting when some person bids 4 and then another person wanted to bid 4, so they have to go 3 or 5. And it gets a nice kind of interactive element to bidding in a trick-taking game. My number 4 is exact bidding, or just, the bidding you think of when you think of bidding in a trick-taker. It's where you make a prediction on a number of tricks you're going to hit, and you try to hit that exact number. If you're off, up or down by 1, you don't get any points. You can see this in Dwa, or maybe 99, which we've covered, or Skulking. And it's interesting. I think it's a little restrictive, and it's kind of tough on new players, because they don't quite know how to evaluate their hand yet. But I still like it. What it does really well is it mitigates the draw. It mitigates the luck of whatever you're dealt, because you can still make points, or you can still do well in the game when you're dealt a bad hand. So I like the kind of balancing that a bidding or an exact bidding can give to a game. My number 3 is a little, yikes. It's actually no bidding. Kind of weird to include no bidding on a top 5 bidding video, but I personally prefer no bidding to bidding. I think sometimes it's a little tough to evaluate your hand in a game where bidding is a little obtuse, and so many games do no bidding amazingly. So I generally tend to gravitate towards no bidding, but there are 2 more bidding mechanisms that I think are actually better. So let's jump to those. My number 2 is soft bidding, or kind of looping bidding, where like in Shtickon or Monster Trick or Caddy, which we've covered, you'll make a bid, and sometimes if you overshoot it, if you just make a few more, you can loop back around to that bid. I love the sense that players have kind of a redemption arc if they really need it to, and if they do mess up, they still have a chance to get back into that good favor of their bid. I think when players have a second chance, but it's a little harder, it always creates such fun tension on the table. So I think that's why it's my second favorite bidding mechanism. Oh, I forgot to say, as part of this second kind of soft looping bidding, I wanted to mention Tide Paltrix, or Ghost of Christmas, where if you bid 3 and stop there, and you hit it, you'll get a lot of points. But you can possibly bid 4, where if you hit 4, you'll get some points. It's kind of the soft bidding idea, and I love that it gives some flexibility. I wanted to include it here because it's kind of the same mindset to me as a looping bidding, where it gives some flexibility, or kind of a second chance if you've overshot just a little bit. Before we get to number 1, I did want to give an honorable mention to something that I'm not quite sure if it's bidding, it's more like betting, but it's Haggis and Tichu, the bets to get out first. So Grand Teacher, Tichu, and then just the betting in Haggis. I love those as kind of still the same mindset. You're kind of predicting on your hand how good of a hand you think you have, but I do think they're kind of not quite bidding. I don't know, you tell me in the comments, but I just want to say honorable mentions to those because I think those are actually fantastic on how they implement kind of that binary push and pull of how do you evaluate your hand, how strong is your hand, especially compared to the other people at the table. And we're back to number 1. I don't know if you might have guessed this one. It's kind of a weird one to describe, but it's bidding as you go. Just an absolutely fantastic mechanism. So you can see this in actually a fair amount of games lately. So Segment Tricks, or Nikosu Dice, or Eternity, which was remade as Anansi. But the premise is, you actually don't make a bid at the start of your hand. You make the bid as you play the hand. So you might get a sense of what the strength of your hand is as you go. It's a little bit more lenient. It creates to some crazy tension later on in the game, depending on how strict the kind of bidding as you go is, especially in maybe like Nikosu Dice, where everyone sees the possible bids you can have in front of you, or maybe Segment Tricks, where people see how many tokens you have left to make that bid. I love this because bidding at the start, I think, is just a little bit too restrictive for me personally, and it relies a little bit on judgment of hands when you don't know too much, the other people's hands, when you don't know too much about them yet. And the lovely thing about bidding as you go is you can really get a sense, especially if you know the players at the table and how they play, you can really get a sense of the strength of their hands halfway through, especially when you see who's off suit and gain a little bit more information, and the tracking is just a little bit juicier. So I just absolutely love bidding as you go. I think it's possibly one of my favorite trick-taking mechanics ever. Might have been just the reason for this list. So definitely check out a bidding as you go mechanism if you didn't like bidding before. And if you did like bidding before, maybe check it out because it might make bidding even better. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and 555 insane. Y'all are the absolute best. See ya.